So something came in the mail from China today. This Mini-ITX case that I bought for 20 some odd dollars on eBay. This is going to be the recipient of the guts of this HP Pavilion P2 computer that I made a video about recently. This is a full-size mini tower case computer that, as it turns out, has a Mini-ITX motherboard inside it. The power supply is on top of it. It takes a laptop-style power supply. It's got an extremely anemic, for 2012, AMD Fusion E300 CPU. And this computer is pretty much just, it's so gutless, it's not useful for anything today. And I thought, well, what can I do to make a computer that is otherwise junk, even though it works perfectly? What can I do to it to make it just interesting enough to not be junk? And I decided what I will do is transport the guts of this computer into this Mini-ITX case. And that, I think, ought to be pretty cool. First impressions of the case? Well, first of all, the listing said it was made of plastic. That's clearly metal. The build quality seems to be perfectly fine. It's got the wiring harness for the front switches and I/O. And it comes with, what is this? I think they're rubber feet. So you can stick rubber feet anywhere you want on the case, I guess. So let me start by getting the guts out of this computer and then go from there. Alright, I got the motherboard out 4 screws later. Gosh, this thing is small. And I got the fan as well, although we might not use this one. I'll probably have to use a smaller, slimmer one, but that's no issue. And I haven't actually, no, I can tell just by looking at it, this heatsink's too tall. So I'm going to have to modify this. I'll probably take my my rotary tool and just saw the top of the heatsink off. I think that's the way I'll have to go to get this heatsink short enough. These are the SATA power cables. They plug into little headers right here on the motherboard to provide power to the hard drive and optical drive. This computer, we obviously won't be using the optical drive, and we won't be using the 3.5-inch hard drive because this case is meant to use a 2.5-inch hard drive. So I have one lined up. This 500 gig Seagate Momentous Thin. This hard drive came out of the Lenovo ThinkPad X130E, if anybody remembers that computer from bygone days. So yeah, I guess I think I can screw in the motherboard with this heatsink as it is right now, just to make sure it all fits, and then we'll go from there. Oh, can't forget the I/O shield. That'll be going in here too. Ta-da! It actually fits pretty darn well. They give you all the screws you need. I also screwed the hard drive to this rail that'll sit right in here. But of course the heatsink here is in the way. So I'm gonna have to, I'll probably lop off half of it. And after that we'll be able to fit the hard drive in here. And I've got the front panel hooked up, or at least I think I've got it hooked up the right way. I've got the front USB hooked up. And it's funny, the front panel connections include a hard drive activity LED, but I see nowhere where a hard drive activity light would be. So I guess it'll be a surprise when we turn it on for the first time. Let me take this heatsink off. Luckily it just comes off with hooks. And I'll see how difficult it is with my Dremel tool to cut half of all these fins off. The answer, as it turns out, is quite difficult. I could have done it with my rotary tool, but it would have taken a long time, and the amount of noise, I'm self-conscious of the noise being in an apartment building at all. So what I did instead was I took my wire cutters and not cut the fins off because they were too thick, but just grabbed onto each fin and wiggled it back and forth until it broke, resulting in the sorriest friggin' heatsink I've ever seen in my life. But you know what? It'll still cool the CPU, and that's what's important. I sure hope it's short enough, because I don't know if I have the energy to do that again. Let's find out. Aw, yeah. Fits perfect. Just enough clearance. Looks like garbage, but it works, and that's what matters. We're definitely not going to be able to use this CPU fan. I will have to dig up an itty-bitty fan, like one meant for a socket 7 or socket 3 or something like that, and like stick it either on the upper cover here or put it on this little side wall. Or Lord, you know, this CPU is so low power, and maybe the heatsink's big enough that it'll just convection cool. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But I say I should be able to, at this point, hook the hard drive up and hook power and peripherals to this thing and see if, well, hopefully it should power on, but we'll see how it works. I have no idea if that hard drive has an operating system on it. If it does, it'll probably blue screen to death anyway. But see if we can see how hot the CPU's getting and just make sure it works. I'm excited. Alright, let's see if this pile of hot garbage still works. Oh, we have power, we have light. Heard the hard drive spin up. Monitor's coming to life. Oh boy. Oh, I see text on the screen. We have an error code. Rear chassis fan not detected. Yeah, that is correct. Oh, there is a... Oh! Oh, hey, it's booting into Windows 10. The hard drive activity LED is part of the power light. The power light's blue, and the activity LED's red, so it sort of lights up a purpley color when the hard drive is active. Very interesting. And we're booting into Windows 10. I have no idea what I last used this hard drive in, but the fact that it isn't giving a blue screen of death is rather odd. Windows 10 usually does not like being ported to a different computer than it was installed on. Well, it appears to have an untouched installation of Windows 10 version 1903. Not sure why that's there, and I'm also not sure how it managed to boot up, but as you can see, I got a speed fan running here. The CPU's hanging at 78, 79 degrees Celsius at 100% usage, and it's just sitting here. Windows is doing something that's ramping the CPU up to 100%, probably trying to do updates or something, but yeah, clearly I'm going to need a fan for this thing. Heatsink is quite hot to the touch, so I know I have some small fans. I don't think they're here. I think they're at Mom's house, but I'll dig in my parts bin here and see if I can come up with anything suitable. Well, I wasn't able to find a suitable fan in my parts bin, but I'm pretty sure I have one in my stash of parts at Mom's house, so I'll have to check next time I'm there. And I just noticed that on this side of the case, there's actually what look like mounting holes for a fan here. They look big enough for the standard types of screws you find on fans, so it might fit a fan of that size. But even without a fan, this thing is at least partially usable. It idles around the 60s, and just for kicks I ran Prime 95 on it, and the hottest it ever got was 88, 89 degrees, so that's obviously extremely hot, but these AMD Fusions, in my experience, don't care how hot they get. My Lenovo ThinkPad X130E, which had an E450 CPU in it, I used to get that thing accidentally up to like 95, 100 degrees, and it never cared. It never shut down. It didn't give, you know, it never gave a hiccup getting that hot. So these AMD Fusion CPUs, you know, 85 degrees is nothing, but I will get a fan in this thing. And after that, probably put Windows 10 on this, maybe a flavor of Linux as well, and then probably never touch it again because I don't really have a use for something like this. Maybe I can find a use. Maybe it'd make a good little media center PC, perhaps. Maybe it's got enough gumption for that. But I gotta say, this has been a really cool project. We took a really crappy junk computer and made it into a really crappy junk computer in a cooler case. This makes this computer just it makes it way more interesting now, just because it's so small, and it's less weird now because it's actually in a case suitable for how big the motherboard is. And just for comparison, there is the size difference we're looking at. And what's going to happen to this case? I pulled the hard drive and optical drive out of it. I'm going to keep those for parts, and this is going to be trashed. It's not useful for me. It can't take a standard ATX motherboard. It is of no use, so this is going to be trashed, and I'll be glad to get it out of the house. But now I have a interesting, if gutless, Mini-ITX computer. And if in the future the motherboard or something dies, I still have this to build another Mini-ITX system in. Maybe a better, more powerful one. Who knows? But I certainly had a lot of fun putting this together. And I hope I can find some sort of use for it, even if it's just to tinker with. So, there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.